Multiple news networks from overseas, I should say, have found themselves in some hot water over how they edited clips of President Trump's speech in January of 2021. These broadcasters cut out a portion of the president's speech in which he urged his supporters to, quote, protest peacefully. We will show you these edits momentarily, but now Trump's lawyers are leading the charge and planning to bring accountability to those involved. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany here with my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Emily Campagno. Also joining us, Caroline Downey, National Review columnist, and Paul Morrow, former NYPD inspector, attorney, and Fox News contributor. Well, let's begin with a side-by-side comparison. You will see the difference between the BBC's documentary about the president compared to the raw, unedited clips of Trump's speech that day.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them.
Trump's lawyers wrote to the BBC threatening to sue for $1 billion in damages unless the BBC issues a retraction and compensates him. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt got just one question on this topic in Wednesday's briefing, and she said that a lawsuit is now in the works.
The president has made it very clear that this is a leftist propaganda machine that is unfortunately subsidized by British taxpayers. I think that the president was deeply concerned by the editing, the purposeful and dishonest editing of his speech that was so clearly fake news. And he rightfully dubbed that term many years ago. And this is a classic example of that. We see it in the United States all the time. We see it now in the United Kingdom. As you know, the president's external legal counsel has filed a lawsuit against the BBC.
Now, Australia's TV broadcaster ABC is being accused by Sky News of doctoring a similar edit of Trump's speech in 2021, much to the same tune as the BBC. See for yourself.
And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them, because you'll never take back our country with weakness.
Australia's ABC is now in damage control mode, quote, comparing the BBC's Panorama program to the ABC's Four Corners program is opportunistic and false, they say. The grab on Four Corners was used accurately by the program. The editing did not change the meaning of that section of the speech and did not mislead the audience. The program was consistent with the ABC's high standards of factual, accurate, and impartial storytelling. Paul, we know that in the United States, where this lawsuit's going to be, it's in the jurisdiction of Florida, you have to prove actual malice, so either an intent to spread false information or reckless disregard for the truth. By omitting peaceful and patriotic, which is exactly what Trump says, it seems like reckless disregard. It
does. So this is what happens when you don't have a First Amendment-based society. You and I have made this point before on the air. The First Amendment, there's a reason the First Amendment is first. It's the foundation of our system, right? UK and Australia. Australia follows the UK model a lot more, does not have it. As a result, what do you get? Well, you get stuff like this. And the way they try to police it is to make their defamation laws very draconian. That's the problem for them in this instance. Trump's suit has merit. And the problem for them is that the damages in the UK and Australian systems are a hammer. Everybody has read those stories. You don't have the malice, as you said. And here's the other key thing with them. The burden of proof is on the defendant. Here, it's much, much higher. So it's a lower bar, heavier damages. And this is what happens to expand the playing field. This is what happens when you don't have a First Amendment and you also have government media, right? We've talked about it relative to NPR. Government shouldn't be in media of this sort, and that confluence is what creates situations like this. This is UK deep state stuff. The case has merit. That's why they're all in damage control mode, because he's suing for $1 billion. That's not going to be the amount. But they're going to take a real hit here unless they work this out.
And Emily, there's always the option that the BBC would settle. We have seen other news outlets do that.
Sure, and I sort of want to walk viewers through to what exactly is going on for those that have questions about suing a foreign entity on our soil. So the argument, as you said, it's willful, deceitful editing, intentional, and that's important because it goes to the actual malice standard. But President Trump is arguing, look, not only am I a resident of Florida, but you broadcast amplified online to streaming here in the state of Florida, and therefore it touches me. Now, note that that's going to be one of the defenses that the BBC says, which is, look, we're not even on your soil. But I think the important thing here is that while they are arguing, well, the substance is still there, materially it means the same thing. The reality is that his two statements were 54 minutes apart, and splicing together non-adjacent statements that clearly convey a different meaning than his patriotic, peacefully making your voices heard statement, which was the crux and the point of his commentary, is totally materially misleading. And in the president's argument, not only massive reputational harm, but he points out, you guys dropped this a week before the presidential elections. And he argues that they thereby materially impacted the outcome of the elections. Final quick point, there's a statute of limitations situation here, but I'm fully confident, even if they settle, but I hope they don't. Because this is the kind of thing that I think the culture in the UK and Australia have been allowed to sort of run unfettered with a massively gossipy and untrue, rabid press corps. And I think here they have finally met their match that says, not on my watch.
And to the point, it's being funded by the citizens of the United Kingdom who have to pay a fee to the BBC. Harris, there was an internal document that took place at the BBC. There's a man named Michael Prescott. He was an independent advisor to the BBC's Editorial Guidelines and Standards Board. The Telegraph obtained this internal document, and here is what this document said, according to the Telegraph. The document, written by former journalist Michael Prescott, sent to the BBC board, exposes a string of incidents that demonstrates serious apparent bias in the corporation's reporting. They include evidence that BBC Panorama doctored a speech by Trump. It also highlights serious problems with BBC Arabic's reporting on Gaza, in which it apparently gives extensive space to the views of Hamas. Oh, wait. And elsewhere, he raises concerns that a unit of rogue LGBT plus reporters are censoring coverage of the trans debate. The bias runs deep.
Look, there's no accountability that they've probably ever had to face. And what Emily was talking about is so true. The UK population there, they're not going to pipe up about this. I mean, they're looking at this as fodder, political kind of entertainment anyway. It's happening in the United States, and it doesn't really go counter to what their politics en masse have been shown to be. But the problem with a license fee and a royal charter, that's state-run media.
Yep.
I mean, you've already kind of entered the gates on that. And if the state of people are not going to keep that government in check, well, then who does it? Well, I guess in this case, it's going to be President Trump and his attorneys, external attorneys from the White House looking at this saying, you can't do this. So I would say this, though, about the Australia situation, because I thought that statement was really interesting. They said why it was not an infraction to use material from 54 minutes away and hook it up with other material. Journalism 101 says chronological, yes, but not that far apart. Okay, so they say why they don't feel like that's a problem, but they don't tell us why they felt the need to do it. And I think we need to know that. I think Trump's attorneys will get to that. It's like, well, if it wasn't going to change the meaning, it didn't look like it would really change the length that much. And in television, sometimes that can be why you edit down. But you are tight and very meticulously careful about the time between when someone said something and when someone said something else, and putting those things together. That's all part of our journalism accountability and expectation for the truth to the public. I think they don't win this. I hope they don't settle, because I'd like to see the battle, because it's worth fighting. I think they'll settle. I think they know they can't win.
The discovery, and they get into discovery, and they look at all of those emails. That's what they don't want.
Exactly. I think they don't want that.
I do want to bring in a voice that says the BBC tries so ever hard. It is Brian Stelter. Let's listen to his take on this.
In a vacuum, this really bad edit by an outside production company would not cause heads to roll at the very top of the BBC. But the network exists in an incredibly politically charged environment, even as it tries to be apolitical and impartial.
They try so hard to be apolitical and impartial, Caroline.
I want to give viewers a sense of the British media landscape. So I frequently write for The Telegraph, which is one of the few conservative-leaning publications in England that doesn't believe that Trump is a dictator and an authoritarian. And to your point, Kaylee, they actually released the dossier that found that the BBC deceptively edited that speech to suggest that Trump was inciting a riot. Deeply dishonest. And it is worth restating that the BBC is kind of like the equivalent of NPR and PBS in the United States, in that they are taxpayer funded, but they claim impartiality and they claim neutrality, but they regularly toe the progressive line. That's just not consistent. It's also not representative of the British public, I would argue, many of whom actually lean conservative. We saw those huge protests after Charlie Kirk's assassination in London showing a conservative upswell of support. But it's worth stating that the BBC's record of bias is long-standing. It goes beyond Trump. Just a few examples. They were found to have reprimanded a host who tried to change a script that said originally pregnant people into pregnant women. So she got a slap on the wrist for actually changing that to reflect biological reality. So the BBC engages in gender ideology doublespeak. In addition to that, they were involved in a pretty serious editorial scandal where they forgot to disclose that the teenage narrator of one of their documentaries was actually the son of a Hamas official. So their anti-Israel bias is pretty well documented. And that just goes to show you, not impartial, not neutral.
Oh, but they try so hard, and they have a great defender in Brian Stelter. Good for him.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.